So we're up against it from the start. And I know my immediate reaction as a young police officer was to not believe it or to be completely confused as to, well, why didn't you punch him in the face? Why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you tell anybody? Until I was older and understood the effects that traumatic events can have.
I'm Angela Williams,
Hi, and I'm Katie Sudano,
and I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
and I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. Welcome
Welcome
to
to Voice
Voice
Up
Up
for
for
the
the
Voiceless.
Voiceless.
We're so glad that you've tuned in with us. We've got a great show today. Katie and I are so excited. We have Matthew Stegner on with us today, and he is a retired active law enforcement. So we're really going to get to dive into the side of it where, child sexual abuse is
Law
so
enforcement
challenging, so difficult to prosecute those cases.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to get a lot of good knowledge. And so if you could like, share, and comment.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to put the little bell on so you'll get notified every time we go on. And I'm so excited. Matt is coming in all the way from Buffalo, New York. And we're going to get into it in a second. But from what I've heard, he actually was also a police officer right here in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm interested to hear some stories. And yeah.
And I have such a heart for police officers. My son, as you know, is an officer out in Colorado,
Yes.
and they put their life on the line every minute of every day.
Yep.
And their service is certainly needs to be appreciated.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
It's a tough job, tough
Yep.
gig.
So we're so grateful to introduce Matt Stegner.
Hey, everybody.
Hi. Hi.
Welcome,
Yeah,
Matt.
welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and share, I'm sure, some very valuable tips and things that you've been through that can enlighten our audience on the horrific things of child sexual abuse. It's been such a taboo for so long, and a lot of people don't even think that it happens here in the United States. So we're so grateful to get your insight, your information, and just your experience.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt.
Yeah, I'm so grateful first and foremost for the opportunity, and I'm grateful to both of you for talking about this. I know our generation isn't really into talking about feelings all the time, and certainly topics like this. So I'm grateful to both of you for providing this platform. A little bit about my background: I started becoming a police officer at the age of 21. So I'm from Buffalo, New York. So I actually moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I worked for the City of Atlanta Police Department for 4 years. My then girlfriend, now wife, were interested in getting back to New York, so we moved back, and I joined the New York State Police, and I worked for them for an additional 22 years. Then I retired, a year ago, and now I train nationally and even internationally on sexual assault, child abuse, child exploitation, things of that nature. So it's something I'm still very passionate about. When I first jumped into the profession, it wasn't my thought process. The topic and the challenges that come with it just kind of sucked me in, and it's been a very rewarding experience, tough experience, but rewarding experience investigating these cases.
So that was a total of 26 years in law enforcement.
26 years, yeah, and I'm
26 years.
not too messed up. I think I'm still pretty normal, but I have my moments.
So in those 26 years, what have you learned about this topic?
The biggest thing is the challenges of the criminal justice system. I think it's important to remember that this system was designed when these crimes weren't even crimes. They weren't talked about. They weren't adjudicated. Our criminal justice system is really based around property crimes. The only people crimes were usually robbery, burglary, or homicide. So the topic of disclosures, of dealing with small children, ages 5, 6, and 7, and their ability to testify, their ability to sign written statements. The whole system was designed before this was a crime. So it's very difficult to handle these cases in a way that brings justice to the survivor, and whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
So that's the biggest challenge. But at the end of the day, it can't be an excuse. We have a job to do. It can be very difficult with such a low batting average of successes. However, everybody deserves a fair chance, an honest and robust, trauma-informed police investigation. And I made plenty of mistakes along the way, plenty. And I'm just here trying to get the next generation of officer to not commit those same mistakes that I did.
So we're very familiar. It's unfortunate, but very, very familiar with the we call them for survivors, but I know you guys use the term victims. So for this sake, I'll use victims, even though we're all survivors.
Mhm.
Where survivors don't get the justice that they deserve. And, this is, I don't even know if this is really silly, but I love a show on TV. It's SVU, on ABC. I know that it's fiction, but I know that they do draw a lot of real life crimes and stories to their production. And I was watching just the other day, I think last week's episode, and they were really touching on how, why victims won't disclose, why they won't come out, that they're so victim shamed. What has your experience been as far as a timeline of that changing? Do you see it becoming more open where people want to disclose, or are they still kind of like too afraid because of the consequences?
A little bit of both. I will say I've seen it getting better. So, small sample size, but I have three children, ages 21, 18, and 16, the youngest two being girls. And generally speaking, this younger generation is more aware of each other's mental health, of each other's feelings. They certainly don't joke and say things the way that I did when I was their age. And I'm guessing maybe both of you too, as far as how we were. So I am seeing a push towards supporting survivors of this horrific crime, but the numbers are still single digits as far as reporting to police on percentages. So I guess overall, I am seeing more disclosures. We call them delayed disclosures, which is from individuals that are now adults disclosing things that happened to them when they were younger. However, the deteriorating infrastructure in the home, in my opinion, in current day makes it difficult for those acute or immediate disclosures to occur because the person of trust is just not available oftentimes. So I'm not saying this about everybody, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I believe there's a direct consequence when there's not somebody in the home or part of the proverbial village around children that are in a position to receive these disclosures. And man, a lot of people live in silence for a long time.
Well, and there's such fear. I mean, the perpetrator instills such fear into the child. Physical fear, fear of hurting someone in their close world, or obviously fear of, loss of family, loss of relationship. So there's just so much fear. I know I didn't disclose. I suffered for 14 years, and that disclosure came in a suicide attempt at age 17. And I know Katie too. Had a delayed disclosure, and oftentimes the disclosure is met with denial, or it didn't happen, or they just want to sweep it under the
Yeah,
rug. They
mine was,
minimize they minimize the trauma in such a way.
or they still have the abuser around.
Mhm.
And so you're in the corner going, "Wait, what? I just told this awful thing and you're dining with him or her,"
Yeah,
It's
especially in families. I think it's even more
crazy.
challenging in
Yeah.
families.
Well, what about, let's bring it a little more present with what's going on in the media. I'm not sure if you've heard or seen or heard anything. Now, obviously, I don't know much, but from what I've seen with the P. Diddy stuff,
Mm.
I saw that there is a
Documentary?
documentary where the some of the victims that have actually been
Under a gag
deposed.
order or
No, they've been
deposed?
deposed. So they came out in this show talking about how they saw what was going on, they knew what was going on, but they were so afraid of the consequences to disclose. And now, unfortunately, there's so many victims that were, affected by this because of the silence. And, that's our main program here, is to break the silence, to tell people that, we need more resources, people like you, to come on here and say, what do they do? Where do they go from here?
Yeah, the power dynamics and the family dynamics are always really, really difficult to navigate. And, there's a lot of reasons why people may find themselves in, situations, and certainly children have no say in these situations that they end up in. It's tough. It's very, very difficult. And I agree with you. I think that the more we talk about it, the more we can get rid of the shame, the better. This is not a fun statement for me to say, but I'm here to say that if God forbid something happened to one of my kids, I am not positive that I would just say report to the closest law enforcement. And I'm not proud of that. I'd probably use, some of my privilege to find somebody that I knew what they were doing. But there's such an unknown as to the reaction of what's going to happen when a disclosure is made, that it makes it precarious. And then to add to make it even worse, the unknown of where the criminal justice system is going to take this situation. It doesn't matter. Is there going to be any justice? Am I going to be believed? Is the case going to be overturned 2 years from now? Is this part of the reforms where nobody goes to jail anyways? So
Mhm.
what's the point? There's just a very complicated, complex labyrinth for survivors to navigate through, on top of all the trauma that has happened already. It's really tough, really
So
tough.
since you've spent so much time and devoted your life to this topic and this issue through the lens of the justice system, what needs to be done? Do we need just a court for children?
Yes.
I mean, what needs to be? How do we promote change, policy change? Like, do you have thoughts on that?
I do. So short answer, yes. We need a specialized court. This country has shown, whether it be for veterans, whether it be for drug addicts, that we have shown the ability to modify and make changes. Let me take a step back. I think the system is up against it for the following reasons. Law enforcement, the easiest candidates, when I was active duty and an investigator, I was charged with investigating applicants that wanted to be New York State troopers. The easiest applicants to become police officers are those that have not grown up around a lot of generational trauma or chaos. Now, we all have our stuff. I have my stuff, and I'm sure your son has his stuff, but generally speaking, the best police officers have candidates, two parents in the home, maybe got in a fight or two in high school, stayed at the same job. When you get into candidates that have grown up around violence, around domestic violence, sexual violence, that brings with it oftentimes disqualifying characteristics that remove them from the pool of law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges. So, from a starting point, there's not many people ingrained in the fabric of the criminal justice system that can understand what both of you have gone through. So we're up against it from the start. And I know my immediate reaction as a young police officer was to not believe it, or to be completely confused as to, well, why didn't you punch him in the face? Why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you tell anybody? Until I was older and understood the effects that traumatic events can have. So our starting point is really poor. So I believe that can be navigated or adjudicated more properly with a specialty trained court. They can understand the dynamics of trauma. I think that's a really good starting point.
Well,
Um,
and as a layperson, sorry to as a layperson, you would think, okay, we have so many people with dysfunctional families and trauma and all the stuff. And so, yeah, it makes the pool. But at another part of me, as a layperson, I'd be like, well, wouldn't we be able to use those people because they know what it's like? They understand. Or are you saying you don't use it because they have that filter and reactive, want to do things a little more physical than just stepping back and analyzing things? Is that why you don't?
No, I'm just saying in my experience that those characteristics of people, of children that grow up in chaotic home environments often commit disqualifying acts such as thefts,
Mhm.
fights.
Oh, I see what you're
And
saying.
they're
Yeah,
not in the police force.
yeah,
Gotcha. Mhm.
inability to maintain, the same profession. You may do interviews of previous relationships of applicants and you find difficulties. So I'm not saying this is a broad statement to everyone, but
Right.
I'm saying the easiest police officer candidates are, somebody like me. They grew up in a house without a lot of violence in tiny Orchard Park, New York. I was a Boy Scout. I was an altar boy. I ran track and field. Perfect. Let's make him a cop. So my ability when I receive a disclosure at 21 years old is one of confusion, one of not understanding it because I never saw it.
Right. Okay, that's I think we were saying the same
Yeah.
thing, but I went around a different way.
So I'm a very action oriented.
Yeah.
So just 32,000 elevation. What would it take to start a children's court?
I think we need to model, to me, the most successful change, which was again moms, and that's Mothers Against Drunk Driving. When I
Mhm.
started as a police officer, I'm not proud of this, but we did not make DWI arrests if you were
And
a certain,
DUI for the South,
yeah,
right?
you
DUI
drive
for the South.
Mhm.
Yep.
yeah, firemen, doctors, police officers. We didn't view it as a high priority crime. I'm not proud of that. I'm just being honest with you. Most of the times, you
Mhm.
grab the keys and run the guy home. Mothers Against Drunk Driving from the ground roots really changed the way that law enforcement views and adjudicates these cases. And certainly as the years went on, it became a non-negotiable arrest. It was, something that absent extreme exigent
Non-negotiable.
circumstances had no tolerance. And these were a group of women who had lost loved ones and said, not good enough. And they rolled out national training on standardized field sobriety tests. So police reports in Atlanta look the same as police reports in New York. They funded district attorneys to hire a special prosecutor on how to adjudicate or handle the nuances of a breath test, a blood test, things of that nature. So we've seen it before. I would even argue that we've seen it with drug courts, some of which I agree with, some of which I don't. But the idea that like I said, in the '90s was the crack epidemic in Atlanta. I arrested users of crack cocaine for felonies if they had a crack pipe. Even if they wanted to get better, there was going to be jail time attached. I think we've evolved from that in a positive way. So we've seen it before, but for whatever reason, this category of crime, it just is stuck.
It
And
is stuck, and we've got to get it unstuck.
we got
We
to
need
get
to,
it.
I've done
yeah.
a lot of policy work in the mid 2000s, 2014, 15, in trying to extend or even eliminate the statute of limitations. And
Yeah.
I think it needs to be eliminated both on the criminal and the civil level. I think that would open up survivors to be able to get justice long after, when they're mentally and mentally healed, and
Mhm.
ready to face their abuser and face this.
Mhm.
Most states, it's 23 years old. The criminal statute runs out. And I think that leaves the perpetrator to continue to abuse other children. And I think it leaves a survivor thinking, I'll never get justice. And even in the civil courts, the civil statutes is all over the place, all over the country. So that's not a
So
good
I guess
avenue.
we need to start another nonprofit, Mothers Against Child Sexual
Sexual abuse.
Abuse.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's the power of moms, unbelievable, undeniable.
speak to this for me. We recently had a case where a little 4-year-old was definitely sexually abused, and in his disclosure in the forensic interview, as kids do, he had some make believe that it happened in outer space and it happened. Kids. The disclosure is not linear. And so the detective said, he'll be disqualified and we don't have a good case. I believe it happened, but we don't have a good case.
Yeah, I push back on that, and here's what I say when I hear that. If you had a random drug user show up at a police station and say, "I have information about 10 kilos of coke and 5 assault rifles," nobody cares that he's been arrested 20 times. Nobody cares that he's been wanted for traffic citation warrants. Not only does law enforcement listen to him, not only do they use his information, they pay him. They sign him up as an informant. They take care of his tickets, even though they're always late and often still in the game. So I often say this immediate disqualification does not excuse you because the forensic interview didn't go exactly as you thought it should go from conducting a criminal investigation. And back to the DW or DUI example, if I'm pulled over on suspicion of DUI, there's 6 standardized field sobriety tests that a police officer is supposed to run me through. If number 1 I pass or it doesn't go that great, they still do the other 5. So
Mm,
I'm asking the same from
Mm.
law enforcement that, hey,
Yeah.
even if the disclosure is not, quote, perfect, does it stop you from going to do a suspect interview? Does it stop you from collecting potential physical evidence? Does it stop you from interviewing the disclosure witness, the first person the child told? I'm just asking and hoping that law enforcement will not just do home run ball, I call it, where we get the disclosure. If it's perfect, I'm going to roll the dice and try to interview the defendant. I'm really looking for a more wraparound, complete investigation each and every time, and I think that the numbers will go up demonstrably. I know it did for me.
so I know you can't go through your whole training, but just what are some themes that you work with police officers on around the country?
So I really try to be vulnerable about my journey. I was very much the warrior officer type. And full disclosure, I moved to Atlanta because it was hot. It was hot in crime. It was hot in weather, and I wanted to get my stories of car chases, drug dealers, things of that nature. And I really viewed, unfortunately, these kinds of crimes as not my thing. I'm going to hand you off to a detective.
Wasn't exciting.
Yeah, it wasn't exciting, and I didn't understand it, and I believe part of my brain didn't want to understand it. It's a
Mm.
really easy life when everything is black and white. I'm good, you're bad. As you both of you, I'm sure are aware, it gets dicey when you get older and it's not so clean
Yeah.
anymore, and it gets very gray. So fast forward to when I became a New York State trooper. I stayed in uniform for about 12 years, and then I became an investigator. And I got sent to a very rural area of New York State, and the poverty and the sexual abuse and the child abuse was rampant. And we had opened a new child advocacy center, but they did not have the bandwidth to hire a full-time forensic interviewer. So I was voluntold that I had to go get cross-trained as a forensic interviewer. And to both of you, I will never forget that feeling of interviewing. It was an 8-year-old girl as a forensic interviewer, and her disclosing the hell that she was living, and just that feeling of, I got to do something. I don't know what to do, but I know I got to give it everything I have. And ultimately, there was no training. There was no training on how to investigate these, of how to receive these disclosures.
Training.
Yeah, and I muddled my way through it, and ended up really becoming passionate about it, and then doing it full time as a member of our campus sexual assault victims unit. And then just I don't know if this is a selfish thing to say, but the feeling that I got of making drug and gun arrests, they were great, but there was nothing like a survivor giving me the honor of disclosing to me, and in some way, arrest or not, giving her some sort of justice. And I just try to share that, what that did for me in my life, and I want to impart that on any new police officer on what they can do. And so I teach how to handle these cases in a trauma-informed manner, to not give up at this initial disclosure, to follow the steps and do your job each and every time, with the lens of, are you going to feel comfortable seeing this child again in 10 years? And are you
Mhm.
going to be comfortable if your police report is foiled and put in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution? Are you going to be comfortable with the energy and effort that you provided this child? Not talking down to them, because I have plenty of examples of me screwing up, but just hoping to inspire them to do that. They can do this. Even a kid from Orchard Park, New York figured it out. It can happen.
So do you have you written a book, Matt, or do you have like some materials that you share that maybe we could pass along?
Yeah, I have a website. It's
Resources?
it's mstegnerconsulting.com. My brain is too jumpy to write a book, so I do write articles sometimes for Police One magazine.
Okay.
You can Google my name, and I've written half dozen articles for different magazines, publications as well. When I have these thoughts, and
We'll
I want
definitely
to,
link
yeah,
definitely link those to it.
yeah, I definitely will.
You know, I'm sitting here and I'm a little more quiet than I usually am, but I don't know. I just feel like I have goosebumps all over my body. I feel like we're on to something today. Like we need to get other nonprofits, maybe your training, and just start getting a mothers against child abuse situation, something so that we can start this. Because it's one thing to sit here and talk about it, and it's great to break the silence and stuff, but I don't
Action.
know.
It
I'm
needs
I'm
action.
really
This issue
feeling
needs action.
like we need to have maybe another meeting off
Mhm.
camera and see how we can come together and bring other people in um, to start something. I don't know if that's in your
All right, so you're asking me to join you two in fixing all this in a couple
Yes,
of
Yeah,
please.
why not? I don't know, or at least have a
I'm
conversation.
in, sure.
You're in?
Good.
Okay,
Awesome.
great. Well,
Yeah,
you guys
no,
heard it here on
Yeah.
camera on
that's
Voiceless.
right.
Listen, if we can start something, I'm getting pumped up now, but at least a conversation. Like
Yes.
you do trainings, guide us. If you don't want to be along with us, just at least guide
Guide
us
us. Yeah.
and tell us who to talk to, where to go. Like,
Or just
yeah,
a big picture, what it needs to look like.
yeah,
Because like I said, I've been doing this work a long time, and justice is one of the most cruel areas, and it helps in healing if they feel like they've gotten some type of justice, if nothing more than that perpetrator's not going to hurt another child. Because
yeah.
we know the healing journey is so long. If we could just lay our head on the pillow at night and think, okay, he's not going to hurt another child. It's yeah.
Yeah.
We've
Oh,
got
this is yeah,
we
it's
gotta keep
gotta
going.
stop. We talk about this every time, it's gotta stop, but I don't know, for some reason today, what you're telling me, I
Mhm.
feel like there's a little bit of a open door, a
A little hope.
crack of light where, okay, wait, yeah, if this organization did it and made such a huge change, I don't think I knew mothers of,
Drunk drivers.
drunk drivers. What No, that's not it.
Mad. Uh-huh.
MAD. Is that what it is?
Mothers
Mothers
Against Drunk
Against Drunk
Driving.
Mothers
Driving.
Against Drunk Driving, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I knew about them. I knew that they did incredible change, but what you said somehow made it was like an aha moment for me. So, oh my goodness,
They changed the
thank
system, and
you.
the
They
system
changed
is
the
so hard to
culture.
change.
Yeah, they changed the culture of policing. They brought in families who were impacted by this crime to my police academy in Atlanta, Georgia, in 1998. They were doing
Mhm.
this, and then again, we had a survivor in 2002 that came into the New York State Police Academy, and he had lost his wife and a child, and he had posed the question to the recruits, would you arrest a fellow police officer for this? And not all of us raised our hand, and he told his story. So this is fixable. I believe that. I think
So refreshing.
somehow it's become a bit of a partisan issue on occasion, when I think it's just a human rights issue.
It is
Yeah,
a human right.
100%.
It is
Yes.
absolutely a human right issue.
Yeah, I think it's fixable. I know it's fixable. And listen, as far as resources and money, I mean, I love the Buffalo Bills, but we have no business having $1 billion football stadium being built in Orchard Park. So government has shown that they can find the money.
Oh,
If they need it, they can find it. We've seen that time and time again. And I would just love to see a brick and mortar location in every community with a robust child advocacy center that co-locates with child protective services, counselors, sex assault nurse examiners, therapists, individuals that can issue orders of protections, trained district attorneys and prosecutors and trained judges. So this
amen.
isn't trying to force a horrible situation that a 4 or 5 year old discloses into this adult mechanism that was never designed to handle these cases. So if the three of us can figure that out, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. I say we do it. Look, we had a guest on a couple months ago from a child advocacy
Center.
center, and what broke my heart is that she's doing everything she can. She told us what she does and the process, and then she says, but it gets to a certain point that it's out of her hands. And
Yeah.
then they don't know what happens to the
Yeah, they don't
child.
even know what happens. They don't even get follow
They
up.
don't get follow-up, nothing. And it's like, well, how do you know what you just did worked? Or You know, is there a circle? Can the child go back to that trusted person that they just disclosed with and say, hey, I still need X, Y, and Z, or, you know, it didn't happen or it did happen. Yeah. So I don't know. You've really given me so much hope. You know, we wake up every morning and we're like, oh, we got to talk about this, but what can we do about it? I know we're talking, but we have to do something. So thank you.
No, thank you to both of you. And the change is going to come from individuals like you that have a voice and that have influence. Certainly, retired police officer has some voice, but like I said about the partisanship, it somehow on occasion falls into, well, we don't want more laws or we don't want more people incarcerated. And I'm like, well, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a society in 2025 where if something horrible happens to a young person, we have the infrastructure in place for that person to feel safe, to be secure, to get some help, and to bring justice, and to identify the person doing this so they don't become a police officer or become a coach or whatever. So there's a way. There's a way. We
And
just
support healing. I
and
think I'm
support
so
healing.
sad too because, a lot of survivors can't afford a therapy
Mhm.
weekly. It's expensive. And
Yeah.
so, where do they go to get that lifelong healing? And I know I've worked with survivors for so many years, and they'll be fine for a while, and then something horrible will happen in their life, and it just brings up all this grief again. And then they're healing from the trauma again. So,
Mhm.
somebody needs to hold their hand their entire life to help them, you know, in their healing journey.
Yeah, we have, I mean, there's just countless of stories, even very close to us. We know someone whose niece was sexually assaulted by a stepdad, and the stepdad is actually, she disclosed, he's in jail, I believe, right?
Mhm.
Or being charged, which is great, yay. But the mom is supporting the stepfather and the child's still with the mom. So, like,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
that's a form of abuse when the own mom is supporting the stepdad and shunning potentially the
And
child.
that's a common story.
Yeah,
Another common story, and if you could speak to this that we hear, is that a mother will get the disclosure and is frantic and calls, law enforcement, and then all of a sudden it gets turned on her and she's in court losing custody of her child.
child, yeah.
Can you speak to that? I see that time and time and time again.
Yeah, I can speak to that. It's unfortunate and it's a reality. And again, I think this goes back to the types of individuals that operate in this arena aren't experienced, haven't been properly trained, and unfortunately, when abuse occurs in what Child Protective Services may view as a chaotic environment, I've seen this. I've seen them get focused on marijuana use in the home, or and the college cases. Well, she was drinking and she's 18. Well, okay, like, all right, that's over here. I'm not saying we're going to condone this or whatever, but we have this huge elephant in the room of the crime at hand. Let's focus on that. So I appreciate both of you bringing up the long term part of this. I believe that shows like yours that stamp out the stigma and can bring this to light as part of it. And then I also do think that we have to have an honest conversation about things like dads leaving the home at such a frequent rate, and chaos at home and things of that nature. What you bring up about moms staying with abusers of children, that happens a lot. And I
Or
never thought it
financial reasons.
Yeah,
financial reasons.
financial reasons.
They have
Mhm.
just so little self worth. They don't think they deserve anything more. They're focused on, well, he loves me and I can't do it on my own. There's a lot of moving parts, and the financial reason's a huge part of that too.
And
Or
the
they
cycle.
or they have kids with them.
The cycle, they're not strong enough because they've gone through abuse
They've
and
Sure.
been
trauma
through,
that
yeah,
they've
because
not been
they picked
reconciled.
this person, so
Mhm.
obviously it's for a reason.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you have the cycle of abuse that continues, but then you have a child who honestly, when I talk to people that get disclosures, I'm like, try to let the school counselor call law enforcement or get the disclosure from somewhere else,
Mhm.
because it tends like if the parent steps forward, then it backfires on them.
Well, we have a great interview. If you want to go look back and see it for our viewers and for you, Matt, her name was Kingsley, and she was amazing. She did not disclose herself, but her sister disclosed
To
to a
the school.
counselor school, and then that's how it set off. But also to another point we just spoke about was not only did they got justice. He's in jail for actually 50 years, 50 years, which I was like, what state
It
is
was
that?
Texas.
Yeah, it was
Texas, I was
Texas.
going to say, it's definitely not New York.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, wow, we need to see what
Mhm.
Texas is doing with that. But also, she did talk about how when he did go to jail and he was charged, then the mother's a single mom, and then they struggled, and
They had
then
5 kids, I think. Yeah.
was it five? Well, there was
Yeah.
a lot, but yeah, but that's another realm of or issue that we need to protect the family once that provider's out of the house.
Because
Like,
we hear
then
so
what?
much, and I know you hear so much too, just in such poverty, they sell the child. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the lowest hanging fruit to pay
Yeah.
rent, to get a new washer, whatever. We hear that so much too.
Yeah, no, you're both exactly right. It's a very, very complicated issue with a lot of dynamics, but ultimately, I still think it boils down to creating an environment, regardless of where a child lives, that if this is happening to them, it can be stopped. And
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah,
I just think
Amen.
100%.
that's got to be the focus. And there's definitely a lot of tentacles as far as crime victim compensation and things that can happen. But I just feel like it's these poor CAC advocates and individuals that are in this arena. A lot of them just don't make a livable wage, and it's God's work, but it is tough. My middle child's in college and wants to be a therapist or a psychologist or a guidance counselor. And, I encourage her to do it, but I also wanted to have an honest conversation with her about affordability and rent and things of
Mhm.
that nature.
Mhm.
So it's tough. Some of our most important professions, definitely aren't always backed by the dollar with that. And I also want to reaffirm what you said about disclosures coming from other people. The best, if that's the right word, or easiest to handle cases often come from pediatricians
Mhm.
or will come from teachers because it puts law enforcement in an advantageous position where the offender hasn't been tipped off.
Mhm.
You have this third party observation of a disclosure that's very clean for court purposes. So you're both right. At the end of the day, we want to support regardless of who makes the disclosure, but the third party is definitely helpful.
And there again, I worked really hard, and COVID kind of knocked it out, unfortunately. But in trying to train our medical community on the
Mhm.
signs and symptoms to look for
You
and the
have a resource
questions to
book, right?
ask,
You
I
wrote a
do,
book about it.
called
Yeah, she has.
Physician's Power to Protect. But
Mhm.
Okay.
it was in a pilot stage, and just kind of crumbled through COVID. Like, all these efforts are so challenging and so hard. And, you have to depend on people volunteering their time and energy and effort because there's not, the funding's not there behind it. So,
Mhm. We need
but
to
we,
get in touch with MAD, see how they started
Right.
it, and just replicate
Hey,
it for abuse.
so we're
Yeah.
we're we're continuing to fight the good fight. And Matt, we're so grateful to you and the work that you're doing. And just would like for you to kind of speak to two audiences before we close with you. One, what would be something that you would like to share with someone that's in law enforcement right now?
I'd like to share the fact that I know that right now the profession may seem like it's under attack, or there's been things happening in the past couple years that have made it very difficult. I would just encourage any law enforcement officer to hang in there. When I first became a police officer in Atlanta in 1998, it was not a popular profession. There was a lot of strain, a lot of civil rights strains, especially with a cadre of mostly white officers coming down from the north into these cities under the Clinton crime bill to, quote, try to clean them up. It was difficult, very difficult time. Fast forward to after 9/11, I could not go anywhere without people stopping me as a New York State trooper, buying me coffee, uncomfortably calling me a hero and thanking me. And then, we had the summer of the defund the police movement, and it went bad again. So I'm just here to encourage police officers to hang in there. And ultimately, these kids that we're all talking about, they're going to need a police officer. They're going to need somebody that is thoughtful, that is compassionate, but can get the job done. And I'm just here to tell them that you're going to be put in this stressful yet amazing position where somebody that you don't even know is going to disclose to you the worst thing that ever happened to them. And I'm asking you to be prepared and be ready to go and arm yourself to handle these cases the right way, just like you would training up to fire your firearm properly, to do defensive tactics, or to drive a police car properly. Put it in the same priority list because there's nothing more important than the kids.
And now I want you to speak to that mother or father or grandmother or grandfather that recognizes that their child is being sexually abused.
Yeah, I just want to encourage you to tell somebody and to advocate for that kid. It's life's a hard enough road already, and I've seen kids that have gone through terrible situations when they've been younger. But if they can, in my experience, be given a thoughtful and robust response, and have somebody really advocating them and protecting for them, they can bounce back and they can have amazing lives and start their own amazing families. And it only takes one to halt generational trauma. We've all been a part of situations and circumstances with divorces or domestic violence within our families, but it can stop. And I'm asking and encouraging anybody out there to step up. You won't regret it. And what I would hate to see a situation is when the end comes to for any one of us, you have regrets. You have regrets about not advocating properly for those you love the most. So, though we're complaining about some of the difficulties, it has gotten better. There is a path, and there's a path forward, and I'm encouraging you to do the right thing.
Hey, yeah, amazing. Thank you 100%. We appreciate and we value all of your expertise, your just what you've done for this community and for your community. And yeah, I'm just so encouraged and I'm in awe of your training and I want to know more. And of course, I want to see where this will lead and how we can help and take action, not just talk.
Definitely been a blessing to our viewers. We always end our show with a voice of inspiration, which your whole time with us has been inspirational. But if you just want, you can draw from your faith. I know you're a man of God, but just share with our audience just a voice of inspiration before we close.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say I'm filled with gratitude right now. I'm so thankful to both of you for providing this platform, not just to me, but to so many other people. And I'm grateful, for God that put us together, put us in this opportunity to talk about such a difficult topic, and the amazing grace that He has to the three of us that don't even know each other are shaking our heads and in agreement with this topic is such a blessing and so amazing. And I'm also humbled and am not arrogant to the fact that this is a tremendous opportunity. And I remember this each and every time that I'm on a show like this or trained to follow law enforcement. I want to be humble in this message and be grateful and hopefully be inspired as to touch other officers to be great at this because there's kids counting on all of us. So thank you to everybody and thank you to both of you.
Well,
thank you so much. We appreciate you.
We appreciate having you today.
Thanks for having me.
God bless you.
You as well.
God bless.
So what a wonderful show we've had. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I'm blown away.
Still
And inspired. I think I'm inspired. I think we're like walking through mud. I think we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, but for some reason I feel like I got a toe out of the mud.
So we're gonna try to find who founded MAD and talk to them and get some advice because they did a great movement and we need a great movement.
Absolutely. And listen, if there's anyone out there right now listening to us,
they can help us.
Please, if you can help support with information, an opportunity, or a person that's already doing this or starting this that we may not know about, please reach out to us, whether it's on any of our platforms or easiest thing is our website, voiceupforthevoiceless.com/contact. us.
There's
Yeah,
power in numbers, and we can
absolutely.
save the next generation of children. I firmly believe that. I wouldn't wake up every day and do this work if I didn't believe that. So we're grateful to you. We're grateful for you tuning in and sharing our message and our podcast, Voice
Yep.
Up for the Voiceless.
And thank you so much for Mesmerized Media, because we
Yes,
wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And
They
if
are our
you
heroes.
need anything as far as production,
Please
reach out to them. Yeah, they're on our website as well, but I think it's just Mesmerized as an I media.com. And it's also on the description below.
Yeah. Well, I'm Angela Williams. It's
And
been
I'm
my honor to be with you.
sorry.
That's okay.
And I'm Katie Sudeno, and I'm honored as well. But thank you so much, Angela, for always encouraging me and this. And, there's strength in numbers. So
Amen.
thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Have a great day.